You're watching Twin Tiers Sunday with Renata Steele.
Hello and welcome to Twin Tiers Sunday. I'm Renata Steele with WENY TV News, and this week we're talking about an issue that really impacts everyone. It impacts the political process. It impacts us as individuals, as Americans. I'm talking with Victor Tiffany, who is the coordinator of the Ithaca affiliate of Move to Amend, which is part of a national grassroots movement to amend the Constitution. We're going to get more into that, and Victor, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And talking with me. So we want to start off talking about a rally that's happening today, January 20th, in Ithaca, and the reason that it's happening on this Sunday, January 20th, is because that date is the 3rd anniversary of the Citizens United Supreme Court decision. So let's first talk about the rally, and we'll talk about exactly what Citizens United is.
Sure, we're going to meet at 1 o'clock on the Commons at the Bernie Milton Pavilion. We're going to have speakers describing Citizens United, the various legal legs that went into that decision, and we're going to have some music. One of our activists is a performer and a songwriter. He wrote We the People. And we're going to have a couple of elected officials, and we're also going to have the congressional candidate for the 25th seat in New York, Dan Lamb, will be speaking.
Okay, and now for those who are not familiar with what Citizens United is and what it means, and this was me included really, what exactly is the Citizens United Supreme Court decision?
It's a decision that Republican Senator John McCain referred to as, quote, the most misguided, naive, uninformed, egregious decision of the United States Supreme Court in the 21st century. It overthrew the McCain-Feingold Bipartisan Campaign Finance Reform Act of 1992, and it opened the doors for corporations to spend as much money as they want on in our elections, in campaigning for our elections. It also opened the door, not legally, because they could have done this before, but it really established a new norm where billionaires throw as much of their money as they have available at the elections. Mm-hmm. So it's really created an unequal playing field in election contests in the United States. So we have the best Congress money can buy.
Mm-hmm. And now I think that a lot of people would agree that it seems as though most of the time that the candidate who has the most money in their war chest, that spends the most money on political advertisements, seems to be the one that ends up walking away. And I know this isn't across the board true.
Well, we don't know about 2012 yet because those numbers are out, but up to 2012, 96% of the candidates who spend more money win the elections. So we just have a system that's completely out of whack. If you started speaking and I started screaming, mm-hmm. everybody would pay attention to me because my volume's louder. And that's the equivalent of candidates spending, or super PACs spending more and more money in a race, or doing more and more mailings. I got in this congressional district 4 times as many mailings from one candidate as I did the other candidate. And that tilts your perception of who stands where on the issues. So Citizens United depended on 2 sets of legal precedents. One comes from a 1976 decision called Buckley v. Vallejo, where the court decided Congress could not control the amount of spending any candidate does to promote his candidacy. James Buckley was a New York senator, and he successfully argued that because campaign advertising on television is so expensive, money is basically a form of speech, mm-hmm. and you shouldn't regulate it, and the court agreed with that. So that's one of the legal legs that moved towards Citizens United. The other one goes back much further. It's a 127-year-old tradition where the Supreme Court has been granting corporations rights, constitutional rights. Started 1889 with the 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection under the law. Those are the first two rights they got. In 1976, they also got First Amendment rights in a Virginia Board of Pharmacists v. Virginia State Consumer, where they ruled that the political advertising, the advertising for the products and services is protected by the First Amendment. Well, that's granting them a right that the framers put in place for we the people, not property, corporations the property. And there's a very important distinction. So we're trying, so these two legal sets became intertwined in Citizens United, allowing as much money to be spent by millionaires and billionaires and corporate plutocrats to try to shape the outcome of elections in this country. And we think democracy as we've known it is basically under serious threat. And
now, to me, this seems to go against common sense, and this is just my perception as I'm learning more about it. So how does the Supreme Court end up coming to this decision? I know there's these precedent-setting cases that kind of lead to that, but it just seems very...
Citizens United is a media company. They had this movie called Hillary, about Hillary Clinton. They thought she was going to be the Democratic nominee in 2008, and they wanted to run advertisements for their movie near primary times. And McCain-Feingold bill said they can't because that's political campaign or political advertising. So they sued for their right to run these ads. When the Supreme Court read the briefs, they sent it back to the appellees and told them to re-argue the case on much broader lines, to argue it on First Amendment grounds. Basically, they had an agenda to open up the floodgates of corporate money. And so they told Citizens United to re-argue the case, refile briefs along First Amendment lines, and that's how we got this interweaving of these two traditions out of this horrible decision that John McCain was so fond of, Senator McCain.
And now it seems that, mentioned that John McCain is against this, a lot of individuals against this, and there's an effort underway to change this, and that's what we want to talk about in our next segment. We're going to talk about this effort for a constitutional amendment and how you go about that process. So please stick around for our next segment of Twin Tier Sunday.
Twin Tier Sunday will return in a moment.
Welcome back to Twin Tier Sunday. I'm Renata. I'm talking with Victor Tiffany, who is part of a local affiliate, Ithaca affiliate of Move to Amend, which is a nationwide grassroots organization who is really, that is really building a movement to amend the 28th Amendment. We talked about the Citizens United Supreme Court decision in the last segment and just kind of scratch the surface with really what that is. And Victor, you talked in the last segment about how corporations are really being now treated as people. Corporate personhood, I guess, is another term for that sort of thing. And that's a term that I think a lot of people may not be familiar with. So what exactly is corporate personhood?
We distinguish very carefully between corporations as artificial persons, which is a legal standing they've had for centuries, long before the United States existed, that gives them the ability to enter contracts, break contracts, sue, be sued, negotiate prices, and pay taxes. That's artificial corporate personhood. And we have no problems with that. That has nothing to do with the Constitution. Corporate personhood, which is a short form for corporations having been granted a series of constitutional rights that the framers put in place for individual human beings, living, breathing, crying, happy human beings. And these corporations have been exploiting this for all kinds of advantages they gain. And when it comes to corporate rights, size matters. A small mom and pop shop that happens to incorporate in order to have the benefit of limited liability can't afford the well-heeled lawyers to take issues to the Supreme Court. This is really about them gaining market advantage and political advantage in Washington. Sort of a pay-to-play system that works not just through campaigns but also with lobbying money, not technically illegal corruption, but a system that's so based upon corporate money and millionaires and billionaires' money that it is the system of democracy that the framers put in place is corrupted by this money. Professor Lawrence Lessig makes this point with his book, Republic Lost. We have lost our republic because it's become so corrupted by money and the ability of corporations to exploit their rights in several ways. Let's just take a couple of issues so we can talk about, first of all, what would happen to these rights if we get the 28th Amendment passed through Congress, which is a tough slog, and years down the road. We're still in the process of building a movement at this point. We'll be ready to challenge Congress maybe in the 114th, probably in the 115th Congress. But let's say we have a 28th Amendment that abolishes corporate personhood. We manage to get 38 states to ratify it. So now those rights that corporations have will become privileges. And this applies to two areas that are in the news. One is hydraulic fracturing, hydrofracking. Oil and gas companies have budgeted $10 million to get on television and tell New Yorkers that gas drilling, they call it, is good for the economy. It's not for the local economies because land values go down, home prices go down, tourism goes down, and retail sales goes down. So that's propaganda. And they have the right, according to current law, to sell the idea, even using deceitful claims that they've been using along these lines. They have that right. If they only had a privilege, the New York State Legislature could say, no, you can't say that. By law, you have to tell the truth. You have to tell the full story. And in fact, you can't even talk about this. If you want to sell gas, sell gas. If you want to sell a service, sell your service. That's limiting the privilege of corporate speech. I'll give you another example with the gun violence. We don't have a position on guns. This is one faction of gun owners versus another faction of public safety advocates. We don't have a position there. Where our view comes to play is violence in the media. What's the media? It's corporations. So a lot of people, pundits claim that nothing can be done about that. It's protected by the First Amendment. Not if they're corporations. They are now, but if corporations lose their rights, that would give legislatures and Congress the ability to regulate what we see in movies. So we might not see such graphic violence. We might not see 60, 80 people being shot up during one movie. We might not see violence for the sake of violence. You're still going to want accurate depictions of war. So it's going to be tricky. I'm not arguing this is a simple matter, but if corporations lose their rights, then the entertainment that they sell to the public can be regulated. And they can have their privileges revoked if they violate the law. Just like if you drive too fast, you have your license revoked. If you drink and drive, you can have your license revoked. If you abuse your privileges. So driving a car is a privilege, it's not a right. And it's highly regulated, and you can lose that privilege if you break the rules too many times or drive and drink.
Now, what about the people who say the government has no right to step in and regulate to that extent?
It's not a right. They have the power, a power given to them by the Constitution. They have the power to regulate privileges. So if you're making the case they don't have the right they don't have the power to regulate free speech, that's correct. They can't control what I say on here. As long as I don't yell fire in a crowded theater and advocate violent overthrow of the government, right? Because there are limits on my speech. Mm-hmm. But pretty much anything I say goes. They have, because I'm an individual with rights. But ExxonMobil also has First Amendment rights that have been granted to them by the Supreme Court, but property shouldn't have rights. People have rights. So we're trying to abolish those rights. And yes, government has the power to regulate privileges, mm-hmm. just like they do driving a car.
And now another, I guess, goal through this movement regards to campaign finance reform and how corporations are involved in the political process from an advertising and a fundraising perspective. So I want to talk a little bit more about that in our final segment. And again, we want to talk about the rally that's coming up this afternoon on the Ithaca Commons and find out more if you'd like to attend or just learn more. So please stick around for our final segment of Twin Tier Sunday.
Twin Tier Sunday will return in a moment.
Welcome back. Victor and I are continuing to talk about the grassroots movement, Move to Amend. You're with the Ithaca affiliate. We're going to talk more about the rally coming up this afternoon, but we also want to, you've been talking a little bit about the goals here, to the process towards getting an amendment, a constitutional amendment, and how corporations seem to have so much power and rights as opposed to privileges. And we've really seen this, I think, become evident in the political process. And yes, there are rules in place so that large corporations cannot donate money directly to political candidates. But we are seeing in recent years, it seems, ways that they can kind of skirt those regulations, and their money can still go to support a particular candidate.
Through super PACs. Super PACs evolved from another case, SpeechNow.org v. FEC, which SpeechNow.org won, and that led to the creation of super PACs, where individuals and corporations can give as much money as they want to these PACs that then oppose or support, and typically it's opposition, right? They tear candidates down. It's not always honest. And spend as much money throughout the country. A lot of money went into congressional races. In fact, there's the argument that can be made the Democrats would have taken the House were it not for so much super PAC money being spent. Now, super PACs have to disclose their donors. And Karl Rove's American Crossroads is a super PAC, and he wasn't getting many contributions until he established a 501c4 corporation called American Crossroads GPS. And 501c4 corporations don't have to disclose their donors. So a lot of money that went to super PACs came from 501c4s. So it was a way to keep the money hidden, whether it came from corporations or from millionaires and billionaires. So we're aiming for, we don't have specific legislation we're promoting, whether it's public finance or just strict controls of we don't know what's going to come out of Congress. What we want is to be able to, first of all, have Congress be able to make these laws. The Supreme Court shouldn't be involved in this. They have usurped congressional power. Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution makes it very clear Congress has the power to regulate the manner of elections. That's language from the Constitution. Starting in Buckley, that 1976 decision, Congress, I mean, with this idea, this notion that money is a form of speech, that should be decided by people we voted for. Mm-hmm. So if we don't like that decision, we can vote them out and get someone else in. These were unelected handful of people who decided to basically make law from the court, legislate from the bench, and usurped congressional power to regulate the manner of elections. So we want to put that power back in the hands of Congress so that they can pass strong campaign finance reform that will not be thrown out by the Supreme Court. So we have to overturn Buckley by some language that says money's not a form of speech and not to be confused with speech. And we're going to overthrow or overturn Citizens United by stripping corporations of their rights. But it's, again, as I stressed last time, that's not just a matter of campaign finance. It's about corporate control of our culture, our economy, our democracy, and the ability of people taking back the country from the power elites, to use C. Wright Mills' term.
And now we are a country where our representatives are supposed to work for us, not the other way around. But this is how does this effort go from just a movement to actual changes at the federal level? Like, what's the process?
We're working our way up. In Ithaca, we had Common Council pass a resolution telling Congress to pass the 28th Amendment. We had the town of Danby do it. I live in Danby. I wasn't even aware about it until after the fact. Someone else took care of that. We got county legislature to pass 3 resolutions, one very narrowly focused on Citizens United that's not supported by move to amend, and 2 others, one calling on Congress to amend the Constitution to end corporate rights, and another one to end corporate rights and money is not speech. So we got 3 resolutions out of the county legislature. And the town of Ithaca also passed a very strong move to amend type of resolution. And this is going to continue in 2013, maybe not so much in Ithaca, but we need an affiliate in Binghamton. Elmira doesn't have a move to amend affiliate. There has been a resolution passed in Corning to this effect. One guy acting out there on his own. So it doesn't take a lot of people. You can do this with 1, 2, 3 people and get a lot done. And you'll find that grows, because these are good ideas to take this country back and make it a democratic republic, like the framers intended. So we're also this year going to start asking state legislators to sign a pledge to amend. So they will pass resolutions, right, working our way up. They will pass resolutions that have strong move to amend type language, calling on Congress to pass an amendment. And then eventually, we'll change modes and do the hardcore mass movement pressure on Congress to get them to pass an amendment, and then it comes back to the states for ratification.
I see. And now we talked about starting small. That's where we are now, and there's the Ithaca affiliate is holding this rally this afternoon on the Ithaca Commons, weather permitting, whether it be outside or inside. But talk about this rally and what people can expect.
Yeah, we're going to have music. We're going to have maybe a half-dozen speakers, local and regional, county, and federal candidate to speak on the subject. And we're going to, when we're done, we're going to be able to open the floor to questions. So if people come to this thing and have questions about how this will affect corporate ability to negotiate or anything like that, they'll have the ability to answer those questions when we're done.
Okay, and now for maybe they can't go to the rally, but they're just tuning in halfway and they just want to learn more. Where is a good place where people can turn either online to learn more about Citizens United or the 28th Amendment and just to educate themselves more on the issue? You
can go to movetoamend.org. But do not sign the petition at this point, because we're changing databases and we're likely to lose your information. And a great source for information is called the Amendment Gazette. You can find this online. It's not a hard paper, but it's a source that I contribute to as a blogger, describing Citizens United, what would happen after corporations lose their rights, greater detail than what I've had time here to explain. So it's the Amendment Gazette. You can search that in your search engine and you'll see it come up, and go to the table of contents. All kinds of information there about this effort.
Okay, and if they want to get in touch with someone with your affiliate for Move to Amend, is there a way that they can do that?
You can find us on the movetoamend.org website. Just search for Ithaca, and you'll get my contact information. And you can also Google or search Ithaca Move to Amend, which has our local website, which has our phone number that rings to my office.
Okay, great. Well, Victor, Tiffany, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me about this issue. And
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Again, that rally is this afternoon at 1 o'clock on the Ithaca Commons at the Bernie Milton Pavilion. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful Sunday.